Okay guys, you saw in the last video we finished off the lighting for the three engines that sit in between all of the other engines. Now we're working on the top four engines. You can see here I've already got them all wired up and lit up. Just going to talk about what I had to do to get all this wiring in here in this tiny little kit. Now if you look carefully here where the wiring runs, after I drilled all the holes into the engines themselves, I then proceeded to measure out where I would need to run my wires. And using super glue, I found that similar to what I did on some of the other parts of this ship, I was going to have to cut down all of these little tabs here that interlock with the outer portion of the ship, which is this side piece here. Locks into the ship there to give us our side panels for the engines. Now, these tabs here interlocked with tabs on this piece, and they lock and pressure fit together. You don't even need to glue anything. This is all pretty much a snap kit. So what I had to do in order to make the wiring fit was, after I drilled my hole, I had to cut down the tabs in order to give the wire a place to sit. Then I had to cut down a corresponding tab on this part here so that the wire would have room to pass through. So what that does was that it gives us enough room for our wire to sit, and we still have portions of the tabs to lock into place. I didn't remove all the tabs, as I still needed something to lock this piece into place. And that allows us to still install our part, but now you have a little less of a friction fit because you cut away so much of the tab. So I will be using some Tamiya thin cement just to glue this in permanently. But as it is right now, we have our wire in. We're not pinching it or crushing it between any of these two tabs that are going together. And that allows us to run all of our wiring from the two outer engines through the ship itself. The upper wiring I have underneath this cover piece here. Now, to do that, I had to run it through the engines. Let me see if I can pop this cover piece off. I can show you guys exactly what I'm talking about if I can get it off. Because if you're building this kit, this is the kind of thing you're going to have to do, as you're very limited on how much space you actually have in order to put lights in this kit. So I want you guys to know exactly what I did. So if you guys are interested in doing it, you'll know that there's enough room for you to play in here. Now, what I did here was, after I installed the lights into the engine exhaust, I shaved down. There was a little piece of reinforcement here, just like on this side, but it was on this side also. So I shaved that down in order to allow, let's see, just like you have a rib here, there's a rib here, there was a rib here. I shaved that down so that the wire would sit down below the edge of the outer shell of the engine. And that allows the wire to just stay tucked all the way down deep. Then I did the same thing here, where I shaved off a lot of the extra reinforcing ribbing here. I had to shave all of that down to allow our wires to sit down flush within the part. Instead of just sitting on it, now we're sitting in there, well below all of the mounting surfaces that this kit uses to hold all its parts together. This way you're not going to take a chance on pinching any of your wires as you're putting everything together. Then I just drilled two small holes and pulled the wiring through to the underside of the ship, as you can see there. So now we have the two center engines and the two outer engines completely wired up. Now, One other thing I did with the outer engines that I forgot to mention was that I had to cut a channel into the plastic here because I needed the wiring to sit lower than the mating surfaces so that it wouldn't get caught as you're putting the engine together, as you're putting all the parts together. So there's actually a small channel cut in here and a small channel cut in here. This one you can still see because I haven't glued the wire down into it yet. That channel is something that I had to cut in to allow the wire to sit flush with the plastic below the mounting surfaces here and here. And that pretty much covers all of the wiring of the upper portion of the engines. Now I'm going to have to repeat the exact same process for the lower portion. And then we're going to have to get all the wires that come through here and are going to come out through the opening for the display stand. And there I'm going to have either a brass rod or a plastic rod, depending on what I have that fits best, to run the wires through down to a base. So there's quite a bit still left to do here. So I'm going to finish gluing all of this down, start on the other engines, and then I'll be back when there's another update. Alright guys, I'm doing a little more work, a little more surgery on the ship here. And I just thought I'd show you where I'm cutting to make room for the wires. This is the side panel that I showed you earlier. These are the original little pins or pegs here that slot into the engine side of the ship. Now you can see here how I've notched them out to allow the wires to pass through from the engine itself all the way through. I've notched out the other side also. Let's see if we can give you guys a good look at that. So that they're going to come through this way, I'm going to have to notch out a little bit of the plastic here and bring it here so that it exits the ship here. So I just wanted to show you guys exactly where I'm cutting to give the wires an area to travel through. Alright, I'm going to get back to this and continue chipping away at this project. Okay guys, now that we've got all of that chipped away, you can see here where we're going to have a path for our wire. It's going to go this way, come all the way through, and there's a channel already into the ship here. So we're going to go in that way to come through the channel that I cut out here, right after the exit of the ship. So basically we'll be running right along the inner portion, around that channel, out this way for the outboard motor. And we're going to repeat that on the other side as well. Now we already have both sides of this side panel piece trimmed and cut to where we need them to be. Let's see if we can focus on that, to allow the wire to pass through. Now the one thing is, like some of the other pieces, now this fit's not going to be as tight or as snug as it was previously, as this is basically a snap together kit. So what I'm going to do is, after I put everything together, run a little bit of the Tamiya thin cement and permanently attach everything to here, which kind of sucks because if one of the LEDs ever goes out, that's pretty much it for the light up feature on this kit. But, well, unless I can get everything to stay together snugly enough, but I can already feel the looseness in this part here. So we'll have to see. I would love to be able to take it apart, just in case an LED does go bad. I can change them later on, because I always try to make everything I build serviceable. Because at work, you know, it's just one of those things carry over from all the years of working on cars. I like to make things as serviceable as possible so that I can fix them if something goes wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and install the light on this side so you guys can see exactly where it's going to run through. I'll be right back with that. Now, one thing I like to do when I'm installing these lights, or at least depending on the project, is I like to twist the wires together so that instead of having two separate wires that I'm going to have to, you know, maneuver around everything to get them to go where I want, if I twist them together, get them nice and tight together, without kinking them, then I will only have a single wire to deal with. But you have to be very careful because you don't want to make them so tight that you break them. These are very, very thin wires, as you can see here. Now we're going to lay it into the ship, and I'll show you guys where this channel, the exact location of the wires. Alright, so now you guys can see where that wire is running for the outboard engines. As you can see, this sitting in the channel that I notched out on all of those pegs, and through that channel there, which just happens to be perfect for running the wire, and then into the center channel that I made when I cut a little piece of the plastic off of that piece there to allow the wires to pass through to the forward section so that they exit here where the pole is going to be holding it up for the stand. So I'm going to go ahead and install all the wiring, and then I'll be back with that. Alright guys, and here we have all 4 engines wired up. Let's see if we can give you a good look at that. Look at that. It looks pretty cool. And you can see here how 2 of the engines running from one side and the other 2 on this side. You can see the wiring's pretty simple. So if you guys want to replicate this, it's very easy to do, or relatively easy. And you have to kind of make sure you space out all the bulbs internally in about the same distance from the end of the exhaust. Now we will be putting something here to try and diffuse the light a little bit, and we're definitely going to be painting it to cover up all the light leaks. But for now, looks like all of our engines are now wired up, and now we're going to go on to wiring up the bridge and then some assembly. Alright guys, now we have the last light set up in the ship. This will be illuminating the bridge, which I'm going to leave the light behind this little piece of plastic. It's going to diffuse the light enough to give us a slightly different color in the front and spread it evenly throughout the bridge. Now, when you're putting this in, this is very tricky because there's so many different pieces that go together to make the front of this ship. You have the 2 halves, the upper and lower sections. That's 4 pieces, and then you have the front, which is the bridge, is 5 pieces. Then you have the rear of the ship, which has to attach to here. So all of that gets press fit very tightly together. As I've said before, the engineering on these Bandai kits is amazing, as everything is press fit. I mean, it's all a friction fit, and it locks together so beautifully. It's just incredible what they do as far as their engineering goes. But that being the case, there's very little tolerance for anything to get in the way, which means that the wires that I'm running through here kept running into obstacles because this kit was not made for lights. So what I had to do was, apart from drilling the holes, I had to dig trenches in the plastic in order to lay the wire so that it's flush wherever 2 pieces came together. As you can see there, that wire is flush within the plastic here where the other pieces, the other half of the ship lays on top of it. So then now it'll sit flush, everything will get as tight as possible, and we'll have a good looking ship. There is no contact here in this part of the wire here, so it's okay that the wire is hanging out here. But everywhere else, it has to be extremely tight. So the wire has to be hitting right into the plastic. And so if you're going to do something like this, just keep that in mind, that it's going to be a very tight fit for all of your wiring. So now we have all of our wiring done. Here we have all 3 engine sections, each one wired up. Let's just give you a good look at everything here. We have the 4 engines here, the 4 engines here, the 3 engines here, each one with its own separate wire leading to the ship. We have our bridge, again wired up. And then we have our remaining parts of the ship. Which is all going to go together once we start with the paint. And that's when it starts to get really fun. So I'm going to leave this video right here. I just wanted to show you guys what I went through to get the wiring and the lights in the ship. And this has been fun. So I guess on the next episode, we're going to see the paint work start. So I'm going to leave it right here. And remember, guys, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. The channel is growing. I'm getting a lot of new subscribers, and I really want to try to see if we can make it to 2,000 before the end of the year. So spread the word and do all the YouTube stuff. All right, guys, I'll see you on the next one.